Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the meeting. Item number 1, membership of the committee. Any apologies? Councillor Lawson.
There's apologies from Councillor Ali Arshad, and I will be substituting for him.
Thank you. I don't think there's any more. Okay, item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Do we agree that they are an accurate record?
Move them, Chair.
Moved by Councillor Firth, seconded by Councillor Sokol. Item number 3, declarations of interest and lobbying. Councillor Sokol.
None, Chair.
None, Chair.
None, Chair.
None, Chair.
Newsom Centre has been working with 117 on a different project. I have signed the declaration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
None, Chair.
None, Chair. Thank you. I have a declaration which is in relation to the application at Nab Lane, 92963. I was in correspondence and I referred to the ward. I referred them to the ward councillors for that area. Item number 4, admission of the public. Everything will be in public. Item number 5, public question.
There's no questions, Chair. None received.
Thank you. Items 7 and 8 were the site visits. I can confirm that we attended the site visits, minus me. Item number 10, which is the application for the alteration of public house for residential units, the Woolpack Inn, page number 7. Nina, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Nina Sayers, the case officer for this application. This application is for the partial demolition and alterations to convert a public house into 4 residential units. In accordance with the Council's delegation agreement, the application is brought to committee due to receiving a significant number of representation contrary to officer recommendation. 75 representations have been received, 69 in objection, 1 in support, and 5 general comments. The comments made by representation are outlined in full in the committee report. Following publication of the update, 1 additional representation was received, submitted by MP Iqbal Mohammed's office on behalf of a constituent. This raises similar concerns to those already addressed within the committee report. As members will have seen during the site visit, the application site is located in Whitley, fronting Whitley Road. The site currently serves a public house. There is a parking provision to the rear of the site which is accessible off Scopsley Lane. The site is located within the Greenbelt as allocated within the Kirklees local plan. Given the proposal is for the reuse of an existing building, it is considered to comply with both national and local Greenbelt policy as outlined in detail in the committee report. The building serves a public house which is considered a community facility for the purposes of assessment. The loss of a community facility has been highlighted as a point of concern by representation, and this has been carefully considered by officers. During the course of the application, the applicant has submitted details of their financial account to the public house, which demonstrates an overall loss. The applicant has also soft-marketed the property for a 10-week period, including advertising on the leisure property database and on the estate agent website. However, no interest was received. The public house has now been vacant for over 2 years. Officers are satisfied that sufficient information has been provided to demonstrate that the existing use as a public house is not viable, and the applicant has taken the appropriate measures to attempt to market the property, thus complying with LP 48 of the Kirklees local plan. Officers also afford weight to the Council's current housing land supply position and the benefits of providing additional housing. During the course of the application, there was an attempt by local residents to list the property as an asset of community value, but this was unsuccessful. To the rear of the building is a single-storey extension and a two-storey outbuilding, both of which would be demolished as part of the proposal. This would remove the more modern additions to the building, which is considered acceptable from a visual amenity perspective. The proposal would convert the existing building into 4 residential dwellings, 3 two-storey bedroom and 1 3-bedroom. The dwellings would mainly utilise the existing openings with some minor alterations to the exterior of the building. As outlined in the committee update, there was an error in paragraph 10.26 of the report. For clarity, given the limited changes to the exterior of the building, officers do not have any concerns regarding the impact of the proposal on visual amenity. All the dwellings comply with the minimum requirements outlined in the nationally described space standards, and all habitable rooms are considered to have sufficient outlook and natural light. The application initially sought permission for 5 dwellings, however this was reduced as officers had concerns regarding the size of the dwellings which were initially proposed. As shown by the site plan, the scheme would propose private amenity space for all 4 dwellings, as well as off-street parking provision for 2 vehicles per property. Concerns have been raised in representation regarding the access and the impact on highway safety. The proposed access would be marginally further north than the existing to allow for amenity space, as the proposed residential use is expected to generate less traffic than the public house. The access is considered to not cause any additional harm to highway safety over and above the existing arrangements on site. In conclusion, the proposal has been assessed against all relevant local and national planning policies, and for the reasons outlined fully in the committee report, the proposed scheme is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nina. We have one speaker, the agent, Mr. Ray Parker. Mr. Parker, ready whenever you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am Ray Parker, Principal Director of Ray Parker & Co., which are the owners of a pub business, which has 2 pubs, this one, and also run a licensed property consultancy. I've got first-hand knowledge of this site going back to 2002 when I worked for Laurel Pubco, who bought this unit. It made significant losses after a very substantial capital investment, was sold on to Green King, who made further losses. They changed from managed to tenancy. It's had 5 different tenants, all went bust and made losses. It was put on the market in 2016, and we purchased it from Green King, naively thinking that we could use the same model that we used at the blacksmiths to make this go at last. We were wrong. We invested £387,500 in purchasing and a big capital spend again to refurbish the building. We spent a further £10,124 in capital during lockdown to do more improvements to kitchens and bedrooms. After COVID, sales fell by over 20%. Pre-COVID average sales were £6,100 a week, falling to £2,250 a week in the last year of operation. Total trading losses post-COVID have been £84,400. Marketing, yes, we have marketed this through Savills on their pub sale website, which is the normal way of marketing pubs. And in the past 2 years of closure, no one person or business has approached us making any interest in this property. We're aware of an awful lot of objections that went into planning, a lot of it fueled by social media, I have to say. We know a local group made objections and put in an application for asset community value. That was rejected by the council in February 23. The application to have it listed as by Historic England was also refused on the grounds that there is no architectural or historic merit. Many objectors have claimed that we've purposefully run the business down to profiteer, and I would say, why would a business spend over £500,000 running a business to generate so-called profit? We're not. We're not going to break face with this one at all. The pub simply is not viable and hasn't been for the past 23 years. We've worked with the planning department and listened to everything they've said and taken their comments on board. The scheme's reduced to 4 residential units. I think as a profession in the industry, I would not wish to see any other person or company make a loss out of running this site, frankly. And we'll
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So it's over to the committee for comment. Councillor McGrath and then Councillor Sokol.
Thank you very much for that. Shall I stand or we were just sitting down with us? Fair enough. It does sadden me that another pub is going by the wayside, but as we have done in this committee on numerous occasions, we have to sit back and go, well, have you done everything you can? And on this occasion, I'd say more so than previous, you also run, there's also other pubs run and kept alive and done well. It saddens me looking at what a beautiful building it is, and it is going to be a loss to the community, but it was lost in 2002 when it was shut down, and not lost now when its use has changed. If it was a viable business, someone would have snapped it up, the money would have been made, and it would continue to run as a pub. We're not here to dictate how businesses are run, so I think it's a no-brainer that this has to be passed, and it will be a residential, even if it's not passed now, in the future when it will continue not to be a pub and have antisocial behaviour issues and all the other things that come with an abandoned building in the middle of a village. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. As our agent has said, most of the pub business, not in Kirklees, all over the country is going down because no business left. And these days for those pubs, if you look, this huge building. If we leave it like that, nobody will get benefit out of that. It will run down over the year. I understand there are some 75 objections, yeah? But if you read through there, I can mention some of them. They are not relevant to the planning, like keep public house as a community asset. It's not in our control, keeping the pub, they've seen that. Then we say the building could be split, part public house, part that's not in our control or in the council control. We can't do anything, yeah. Then it's a mention other thing, insufficient parking. I think they are provided some parking on this one as well. Yeah, I've read the report, I've been on the site visit, and if you read the planning history of this building, and I think in 91 twice, 98, 3 times the planning permission have been granted to erect some sort of building there. I think this building, when I've seen the boarded up for some time, longer than what I have mentioned, yeah. A bit leave it like that. So we can't do anything. I think we got interest. They are converting into 4 dwelling now. I think originally was a 5 dwelling. Now they come to an amended application down to 4. So I think we need some housing in our country, and this is a brown site as well. Yeah, keep the building like we have done in the past. A lot of textile mills in our borough has closed down in Cornwall and other places. Some of them, we kept them by converting them to the residential use. So this is the same. So I'm happy to move the officer recommendation to approve.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. So it's been moved, officer recommendation. Seconded by Councillor McGrath. Any further comments from anybody? Councillor Firth.
Can I just say, even though I agree with the recommendations and from colleagues, I can understand the locals. They're loath to lose this pub, even though it hasn't been up for quite some time. But I know about this pub going back a lot of years, well before 2002. But it's a small community. facilities are almost non-existent. You've got to travel into Thornhill or the other way. But nevertheless, it makes good use of a building that will never, ever be a public house again. So I'm just commenting on that. So I can understand why the locals don't want to lose it.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. So it has been moved and seconded for the officer's recommendation to delegate approval. Councillor Sully-Richards.
Can I just ask that we are moving it with the items at the conditions at item 12 included?
Yeah, unless there's any other conditions that you would suggest, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there are any further comments. Andrea, I think we'll move to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, so we're voting on the officer's recommendation to approve. Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Firth?
For.
Councillor Lawson?
For.
Councillor Davies?
For.
Councillor Richards?
For.
Councillor Bellamy?
For.
Councillor McGrath?
For.
Councillor Uller?
For.
So that's carried, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next application is on page 27, Nab Lane.
Thank you, Chair. My name is John Holmes and I'm presenting this application for one dwelling which members have been asked to consider. This application is brought to Planning Committee at the request of Councillor Addy. So this slide shows the location of the site. It's adjacent to the Silent Woman Public House in Slowett. It's at the junction of Church Street and Nabs Lane. This shows the layout of the site, and provision is made for 2 parking spaces as well as bin and cycle storage. This shows the elevations of the proposed dwelling. This is the floor plans. These photos are taken from Nabs Lane, and this photo is a street view image taken from Church Street. Shows the site in the centre of the photograph here. And this is an aerial image of the site, and I've outlined the site in red on this image. So the application site's in the Slowett Conservation Area, and as set out in the committee report, it's considered there is potential for the principle of the development to be acceptable. One objection has been received, the content of which is summarised and addressed within the committee report. The planning history of the site is detailed, and there has been the granting of outline planning permission for residential developments in the past. These required finalised details to be the subject of further applications. The most recent planning decision relating to the site is a refusal of planning permission. This was for a development of a similar size, scale and design to the application which is being considered today. The development proposal, whilst amended from the previous scheme, is not considered to have adequately addressed the reasons for refusal of the previous application. As set out in the committee report, the proposed dwelling is considered to be out of character with the locality and lead to a detrimental level of visual harm that would fail to harmonise with the setting of the site and lead to less than substantial harm within the Slowett Conservation Area. In addition, the proposal is considered to have an unacceptable impact upon future occupiers of the dwelling, given the amenity space provision is at the first floor level in a prominent location at the front of the site. With regard to other matters applicable to the site, subject to conditions requiring submission of details relating to noise, visibility, supporting structures of adjacent land and bats and land quality, the proposal is considered to be acceptable in terms of those issues. However, in terms of visual impacts and impacts upon future occupiers of the dwelling, it's considered design solutions exist such that the development could be undertaken which improves the privacy of the amenity space and has an acceptable visual impact. This has been relayed to the applicant's agent by email during the processing of the previous application and again as part of this application. While small-scale amendments have been put forward as part of this proposal, it's considered these do not overcome the concerns. For the reasons set out in the committee report, the adverse impacts of the proposal are not considered to be outweighed by other material considerations, and refusal is therefore recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. A few speakers. The first is the agent for the application, Mr. Mark Lee. Welcome to the meeting, Mr. Lee. You have 3 minutes to present, and we're ready when you are. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Lee. I'm partner at 117 Design. We're the designers of this current application. The application is for an end user. It's not a speculative house, so it's been designed with that in mind. This is a really, really lovely site right in the middle of the conservation area. So when we'd finished our first set of sketches, we had a face-to-face meeting with Sue Brooks, who at the time was the conservation officer responsible for this area. We went through 3 versions of the current scheme, or the previous scheme was refused, with Sue, and she gave her wholehearted support to the scheme that we ultimately put in for planning application purposes. I relayed this back to my client, and then some 6-8 weeks later, we had a letter from John saying he had certain concerns with certain things. I went back to my client and we agreed that we wanted to pursue the application as it was, and we received the refusal. Put a new application in. The scheme works on 2 levels. It works on 3 stories from Nabs Lane and 2 stories from Bank Gate. It's a really, really key scheme. Beauty of the scheme is the curved corner pulls that section together. So my view on the amenity space is it's the same size whether it's at first floor or ground floor, but when viewed from Bank Gate, it could be argued that the amenity space is actually at road level. So from Bank Gate, it's a natural place to put the amenity space. And I would argue that the amenity space at the lower level is actually less private and more overlooked than having it at first floor level. The terrace is not just about amenity space for the end user. It's also about the way the architecture of the building pivots around that corner. And the introduction of the 2 curves, the curve on the main building to reduce that impact of 3 stories, and then the lower curve of the terrace is to allow that building to subtly sit into what is a really, really difficult and awkward site. So I think the amenity space and the wall is the only thing that John and I have a difference of opinion on. I think everything else is sorted. I think he's comfortable with the fenestration, etc. So I think for me it's almost a subjective opinion, but I think the scheme is significantly stronger with that wall and with the amenity space at first floor level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next speaker is Ward Councillor Beverly Addy.
Thank you, Chair. So I've brought this to the committee for you to decide. As you can see, the concerns are not huge anyway in the conservation area, and sensitivity has been given in the material use. The impact is very minimal, but personally, as a resident and the ward councillor, I feel that the impact is negligible compared to the massive benefit of having it there. Efforts have been made to match the original shape. A unique site needs a unique design, and I think this fits very nicely into that space. Care's been taken not to impinge on the aesthetics of the church, key nearby building just opposite. It's got space for cars, which we're always concerned about. There's parking space, which of course can also be outdoor space. I used to play on my drive when I was a kid very often. I don't know this designer developer, but I've heard good things about them, so I'm sure they're going to deliver on the final product as it is in the plans. The concern about facilities for outdoor space and the privacy of such. We live cheek by jowl in the centre of villages. Most places don't have much outdoor space. There are many terraces and even bigger homes that barely have a yard or something shared. It's totally in fitting with the village, edge of the village centre. If you just walk a little bit up the road, you literally 2 minutes away is Rocher Wood. 1 minute down the hill, you're on the canal side. There's lots of fun to be had, walking, cycling. In the village itself, the Spa Park with play equipment and fields. There's amenities nearby with picnic benches and other spaces. So, you know, the concern about volume of outdoor space and how it is, this is where people socialise when they live in the centre of a village. There's shops, cafes, restaurants, bars, and activity facilities such as play gyms and the sports centre, all on hand. A little space to sit out, a little space to move about is already incorporated in the plan. It will tidy up this scruffy corner, which with the refurbishment of the neighbouring pub with a new landlord, hopefully, will make a nice space, all told. And opposite the imposing edifice of the parish church, it's at a key corner of traffic coming through the village. And what alternatives could we think of for this site? I think it's an excellent design. A single home on there is perfectly acceptable. And I personally feel, representing the ward, that this is fitting. It is fitting and in keeping with the village, and the outdoor space is more than adequate with the facilities and amenities nearby.
Thank you, Councillor Addy. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. I can't really add much to what's already been articulated before me, but I will add my weight to what both Mark and Councillor Addy have said. Much is made in the report of the impact on the conservation area. Well, the conservation area is having quite a massive impact on it already. You'll have seen going to the site today. It's horrible. It's overgrown, it's shrubland, and that blooming great blank gable end is an eyesore, frankly, in the centre of the village. Having a property there would be a massive benefit to the conservation area, because leaving the site as it is would be detrimental. We have had problems before of rodents in that part of the world, and I'm certain that the dilapidated nature of that site is a perfect habitat for those, and it has been impacting on the lives of the residents on that street, on Nabs Lane. The developer, I'm struggling to recall a time where I've dealt with a developer who has been more sympathetic and has gone to more lengths to try and be in keeping with the conservation area, be in keeping with the character of the village, from the materials used to the design of the site. That curved sort of, I'm going to call it a tower, it's not a tower, but that curved facade on the front of the building is actually modelled after the old curved wall of the 1782 pub, which is no longer there. That's how much detail this developer has gone into to try and make this in keeping. It's not some cowboy coming in, putting a soulless box in the middle of the conservation area. It will look lovely. And as for the terrace, which is the sticking point of this issue, I do think there's a contradiction in the officer recommendation. In one of them says the terrace isn't in keeping with the character of the area, but the second objection is there's not enough or good enough outdoor amenity space. Well, which do you want? Because I don't really see an alternative way. I take on board their recommendations in the report of alternative engineering solutions, I believe is the phrase. But as the developer has said, the terrace is on ground level from Bank Gate. It's on first floor from Nabs Lane. But if you put that outdoor amenity space either at the back of the property or on Nabs Lane and then surround it, as it says in the report, with walls for privacy, it's just going to be a dark pit. It's not going to be very amenable, this amenity. And they try to use the future well-being of the people who are going to live there as evidence that it's not good enough. I tell you, that terrace will be a fantastic place to sit and look out at the valley, look at the historic buildings, look at the landscapes. That's what you move to somewhere like Slough for. Good public transport connections, amazing people, and the scenery. And if you put the only outdoor amenity down in the bottom, it could be workable if you move it along Nabs Lane and just have a front garden where the driveway and the garage currently are, but then you're not going to be able to put a driveway or a garage on the corner of Nabs Lane, Bankgate and Church Street because it's going to be dangerous. And so you're going to have a whole host of other highways-based objections and parking objections to the site if you do it that way around. I really do think the developer has gone above and beyond in trying to be sympathetic and come up with creative solutions. I'm very much in favour of this application. We need more housing, and leaving the site as it is would be criminal. Well, not literally criminal, sorry. It would be a shame. That's all I think I've got to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Chair. I know this site really, really well. I actually grew up in Slough, so I've got to admit it's an absolute mess at the moment. Looking at these designs, I quite like this curvature side because to me it mirrors the wall across outside the community centre and sort of church. It mirrors. So I actually like that. I know there's not going to be masses of outdoor space, and I can see that, but it is village centre, or more or less, so there is a lot going off, like Councillor Addy's already said. You know, you can walk on to Rocher, you can walk down into the village, there's big parks, there's all sorts going off. So to be honest, I'm more mindful to actually accept this and say that, you know, it's got to look better than what it does now. And like I said, I quite like the design, to be honest. The only thing I would say is buyer needs to be aware that there is a pub next to it. You know, just make sure that that is known, because we all know that pub can get busy when it's open. And the only other thing I would say is, please, can it be built in natural stone, just to keep in keeping with the rest of the buildings? If we can have that condition on, then, to be honest, I'd be happy to move to accepting it.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. So it's been moved to accept and and it's been seconded as well by Councillor McGrath. You're next up.
Yeah, it's very rare that you see a new build property, Chairman, that is more aesthetically pleasing than what's there before in a central village location, and obviously with the beauty of Slough, it's rare to see such a barren piece of land look so bad for so long. So I'm massively for this. I was going to bring up the point of it's next door to a pub. I'm always worried about that. I used to run a club where you build a house next to it. You're always worried about the complaints about noise when you moved into a pub next door, which also brings me back to the point of future people living in that property being concerned about their space. It's their choice. They look around the house. They don't get put in the house. If they were put into the house, I could completely understand, but it's down to them whether they move into that house and pay the figure that's been requested for it. As such, I don't really see that as a point. If you're looking for a massive garden, don't buy this house. But if you want to live in one of the best villages in our area, struck towns, buy it, because the views are amazing. The amenities very close by are amazing. It's got the longest town centre on a canal, I believe, in the country. What a perfect place for a perfectly designed house. So I'm for this, and that's why I second it.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Firth and then Councillor Sokol.
Chair, Councillor McGrath took the words out of my mouth. I think it's an excellent development. And I know the architect and our planner, I think they disagree very little from what I can gather. And I know it's subjective, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I think it's an excellent building. And I'm quite happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. Councillor Sokol and then Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think that I need to say so much, but I still want to say I've been on the site visit this morning with all of you. I've seen the site with the looks. I saw it right on the edge of the Slasway town centre. Yeah, it's a very prominent site. Yeah, need to we develop this one. Yeah. Chair, I think as I read the report, I think the outline planning permission have been given by three times before. Yeah, all granted. Yeah, the outline planning permission. With regard to the design, as the officer mentioned about design of the single-story section of that. My understanding is this design, Eric Firth have said, one of the beautiful design, a design by one of the top designer, I will say, in the country, not only in Kirklees. So I like the design as well. So this further, all the consultancy officer, highways, environment, and highway, they have no objection at all on this building. Yeah, so I can't see anything how we can refuse this application. So I'm happy to support the application.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. As others have actually said, I will echo that the site is a mess. It's a dumping ground. I must admit, when I actually viewed it, I was wondering how on earth they could actually get a house into such small space. But having seen these designs here, I can see how. I also feel that as long as it's in keeping with the houses in the other area using natural stone, etc. And people don't buy a house in the middle of a village for the garden space. Is if you want, as others have echoed, if you want a house with a big garden, you give this a miss. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there are any further speakers. Oh, Councillor Richards.
Just one very minor comment. At 10.89, the ecologist recommended bat boxes or tubes to the site as it's so close to the church. Can we have that as a minor condition?
Yeah, before we go to the vote, I was going to just double check about any conditions that you possibly suggesting.
Natural
The
stone.
motion. Yeah. So the bat boxes.
The back box and the natural stone.
And then others would be delegated back to officers to attach. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded by Councillor Bellamy and Councillor McGrath against the officer's recommendation. John, do you have anything else to add? Sorry. Andrea, I think we'll go to
Okay.
that.
So delegating the application to officers to approve, including conditions relating to the bat boxes and natural stone. Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Firth.
Oh.
Councillor Lawson.
4.
Councillor Davies.
4.
Councillor Lee Richards.
4.
Councillor Bellamy.
4.
Councillor McGrath.
4.
Councillor Uller.
Abstain.
Okay, so that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That brings us to the end of the agenda and the end of the meeting. Thank you for your attendance.